I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And this is a special edition of the Insiders. So Chuck, Wisconsin's political world was rocked by the decision of the Supreme Court last week with regards to redistricting. In the end, the court, a majority, settled on the Republican maps. What did you think of the decision, and what does that mean for the state's politics?
Well, at some point, we have to take a step back. Let's take a step back. Folks, you're watching the sunset of democracy. You know how sunsets work. They don't happen quickly. It takes time. At first, there's a lot of light, and there's the sun, and eventually it dips below the horizon. And there's even sun after, there's even light after that. This is all part of it. What happened here? The Republicans are engaged in a process where we will not have legitimate elections anymore. And unfortunately, the Wisconsin Supreme Court has become nothing more than an enforcement arm of the Republican Party. And the National Supreme Court is in the same condition. Have you watched what's happening with Justice Thomas's wife and what's going on in terms of not believing the election, or that the election should in fact be stolen after the fact? This is part of a larger process. The guardrails have come off. In our democracy, we had this wonderful genius of a system that even when we had elected people, we would have a US Supreme Court at least that was not elected and would cool the passions of both houses and would make, and the president, and make sure that we had some things that would be immutable. Our Constitution and the idea that we had a democracy that was sacred. That is no longer the case, folks. This is very simply a gerrymandered state which produces 60-some votes for the Republicans in each house, even though this is a 50-50 state. And although Scott can say, well, Democrats live in more concentrated areas, it still would not produce what's going on here. This is a dangerous time, folks. And between this election and the next election, if it goes the wrong way, you'll be watching the sunset and the sun will sink below. And that's where we're at.
Well, rather than curse the darkness as Chuck is doing, I suppose I could sing The Sun Will Come Up Tomorrow. But actually, I'm confident that we're going to have elections in this state. Democracy will survive and thrive in this state. I do think it dramatically changes the implications between this map and the one that Governor Evers supported. When it looked like the court was going to settle on the maps that Governor Evers had, there were people like Dale Coenga who said, they've drawn me out of my district. I'm not picking up and moving my family in order to continue in service here. John Jagler suddenly went from a safe Republican seat to one that leaned considerably Democrat in the Dane and Jefferson County area, Dodge. In northern Wisconsin, there was all sorts of movement. Now, when you flip it back to the maps that the court has selected, I think Dale Coenga stays. John Jagler's in a safe seat, but there's a couple of Democratic seats that now come up in the state Senate that will be likely to become Republican. The seat that Senator Bewley had, I think, is likely to go Republican. The seat that Jeff Smith has in the Eau Claire area could easily, it's a competitive seat now, it could easily go to the Republicans. I think you're right that in the state assembly, the Republicans probably have 60 seats or more. Only in a landslide could I see that getting to 2/3 for the Republicans. But in the state Senate, the Republicans really should have a good shot at getting 2/3 majority in the state Senate in this fall's elections, given the map that the court has selected. So the implications are, it's a really quite a flip from one map to the other, and the implications will be felt for the next decade in this state.
As they were for the last decade. But notice what Scott talked about there. Every seat that he talked about is becoming more Republican. It is not a surprise that Republicans in control of the legislature would draw maps of that type. What's deeply disturbing and why we're watching the slow sunset is because not one, but two independent Supreme Courts, supposedly independent Supreme Courts, which the Republicans have worked hard to partisanize with the Federalist Society, et cetera, have now decided that they will not intervene. In fact, they will go back and make it even worse. And they will not even make it marginally better so that Democrats have an opportunity. They will make it so that Jeff Smith may not be back, Janet Bewley may not be back, and other Democrats in the assembly will probably lose their seats. That's not democracy, folks, and you're watching the sunset.
Well, We will be watching the elections closely for the rest of the year here in the state. At least we now know what the lines are. Soon we'll know who the candidates are in all those seats, and there'll be a lot more to talk about as 2022 progresses.
Enjoy the
next
beauty of
week.
the sunset. See you next time.